Leon Draisaitl just gave Mike Babcock the best gift of his summer, and he didn't even mean to. Here's what happened. Draisaitl sat down on Johannes B. Kerner's World Cup podcast, a soccer show in soccer's own house, and casually said the thing hockey fans have been yelling at their TVs for years. Soccer players go down too easily. Stay on your feet. People can handle more than they think. No hedge. No, I don't want to offend anyone. Just a direct hit. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that one clip is splitting sports fans right down the middle. Let's set the scene because context is everything here. This isn't a random guy on a couch with a hot take. This is Leon Draisaitl, one of the biggest stars in the NHL, the face of the Edmonton Oilers, and someone who just closed out the 2025-26 season with 97 points in 65 games. That's not a depth player mouthing off between shifts. That's a guy at the very top of his sport, talking with the kind of credibility that makes people actually stop and listen instead of scrolling past. And then there's the setting, which makes this even bigger. He wasn't asked about this on a hockey broadcast in front of a friendly hockey crowd. He was a guest on a soccer podcast, tied directly to World Cup buzz, surrounded by a soccer audience. So when he leaned into a hockey versus football toughness comparison, there was no quiet corner for that comment to fade into. It was always going to travel, and it did fast. Now here's the actual quote, because the exact wording is what's fueling this whole debate. Draisaitl told the podcast that football players should learn to stay on their feet more, instead of falling so easily. He said people can handle more than they think, and that you don't always have to go down. His argument, stripped down to the basics, is that the constant falling in professional football is unnecessary, especially when you put it next to what hockey players are expected to play through on a nightly basis, game after game, season after season. And that's the line that's now dividing sports fans online, splitting comment sections into two very loud camps. So why did this one clip catch fire instead of fading out like 90% of athlete opinions do? There are a few reasons, and they stack on top of each other. First, it confirms something a lot of hockey fans already believed before Draisaitl ever said a word. Embellishment in soccer is one of the most mocked things in that entire sport, and honestly, plenty of soccer fans admit it themselves when they're being real about it. Draisaitl didn't invent that criticism out of thin air. He just said it out loud, in public, with his name attached to it, on a stage where soccer fans couldn't just scroll past and ignore it. That's the difference between a criticism floating around in comment sections for years and a criticism with a face and a resume behind it, said directly into a microphone. Second, it lines up perfectly with hockey's entire identity as a sport. In hockey, getting hit, getting back up, and finishing the shift isn't optional, it's the baseline expectation. Unless something is seriously wrong, you're expected to play through contact and keep moving like nothing happened. That's not a rule written down anywhere in an official handbook. It's just the culture, the unwritten code the entire sport is built on. So when a hockey star looks over at soccer and says, "You're tougher than this, act like it," it's not some random jab coming out of nowhere. It's coming from an entire sport built around absorbing contact and continuing to compete no matter what, and applying that same standard to a different game entirely. Now, does that mean Draisaitl was sitting there trying to start some manufactured cross-sport rivalry for clicks and attention? Probably not. The more honest read is a lot simpler than that. He was reacting like a fan watching from the outside, comparing what he sees when he watches football to what's considered normal in his own sport. That's not a declaration of war on soccer. That's just a guy answering a question honestly when a microphone happened to be in front of him, on a podcast he probably agreed to for completely unrelated reasons. And the timing could not have worked out better for Edmonton, whether Draisaitl planned it that way or not. Babcock is stepping in behind the Oilers bench for a group that's already known around the league for being hard-nosed and direct. A team built on physicality and star power. Draisaitl throwing out a blunt, unfiltered opinion like this, right as that new era begins, only reinforces the identity the team is trying to build heading into the season. Fits the brand. Fits the room. It fits the reputation the Oilers want walking into this next chapter under a new coach with his own no-nonsense reputation. And honestly, it fits Draisaitl too if you've been paying attention to him for a while now. This is not a guy who's ever chased safe, polished, media-trained soundbites designed to please everybody. If you've watched how he talks after tough losses or rocky stretches in a season, You know he tends to say exactly what's on his mind without smoothing over the edges for anybody, reporters included. This podcast moment carried that exact same tone. It wasn't calculated, it wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't run past a PR team beforehand. It was just Draisaitl being Draisaitl. This time the subject just happened to be a completely different sport. So now you've got two very different reactions playing out at the same time, and that's really the engine behind why this clip refuses to die down online. A lot of soccer fans are furious, and honestly, that reaction was always coming the second this clip left the podcast studio and hit social media. Nobody enjoys being told their sport has a toughness problem, especially from an outsider who plays a completely different game with completely different rules around contact. But on the other side, plenty of hockey fans watched that same clip and just nodded along without hesitation. Because they've been saying this exact thing for years, quietly, in group chats and comment sections and post-game conversations that never made headlines. Draisaitl didn't introduce some brand new opinion into the world that nobody had heard before. He gave an old, familiar argument a famous face and a very loud microphone, and that combination is exactly what made it spread. And that's really the whole story here, when you strip away all the noise and the outrage and the arguing in the replies. Leon Draisaitl didn't set out to torch another sport or start a manufactured war between fan bases. He answered a question honestly, from his own frame of reference, shaped by everything he's experienced in his own sport across a long and successful career. And it happened to land right in the middle of a debate that's been simmering for decades and never actually went away, no matter how many times people have had this same argument before. He just said it out loud, on the record, with his name on it, what a huge chunk of the hockey world already thinks every single time a soccer player hits the grass a little too fast, then looks around for a whistle that never comes.